We did a great job today, and I have to also mention that I started reading your book, and it's such a great book that is really humbling for me in terms of being a seducer, basically an asshole sometimes in my past life, um, and having kind of like the perspective of the one who is
Other
being
person.
seduced. Uh, in that case, I'm assuming is autobiographic, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, um, I think a lot of times people who are the seducer, they they think that what's happening, what they're doing, is something that the other person won't will forget. That it's not something that's going to stay with them. They don't think it's that big of a deal. They don't think that it's going to be that memorable. I think a lot of times it's like that. I don't think that it's necessarily done with the intention to do harm, but they just think like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. They'll forget. Uh, and sometimes that's true.
Yeah.
People might forget, but then there's other people.
The seducer, you mean, or the being seduced?
The person who is doing the seducing, the seducer, like,
Right.
I
They're lacking that empathy of, uh, understanding that their actions
well, you only
have meaning. They have meaning. There's also like this, but I get that. I think there's like kind of like a fight power between a fight around the power and the values between the seducer and the being seduced, and sometimes they meet. When they start meeting, they are really at opposite sides, and one, just to be very simplistic, and it's not reflective of the truth, but the seducer is just an asshole and just wants what they want, let's say sex, and the being seduced
I mean,
wants the romance and wants the relationship, wants, like, solid foundations. They want to make sure that they're matching, and in terms of value, in terms of future together, like not just temporary
but you see, this is the
hookup.
point for me when I was writing this book. That was it was very much important for me to make clear in that coming together, you could say a seducer and one being seduced, or you could just say two people coming together and they
Yes,
each want something. This
yes,
one wants to be loved. This one wants to get laid. Okay. So they have these two things. So it's not necessarily, oh, this one's an asshole and this one's an angel. It's that this one wants to be
I
loved.
agree. Yeah.
Now, the thing is, if all you want to do is get laid, it's very easy to go ahead, get together, you get laid, and then you move on.
All right,
If you
nowadays
wanted to be loved, you needed this exchange, this experience to last a little bit longer.
right.
Now, the person who is being seduced, which was like me, this is where it's like, it's my responsibility to read the signs for what they are. It wasn't like I was always tricked. Sometimes I saw only what I wanted to see.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes I ignored clues or amazing advice from people because I wanted what I wanted, and I didn't.
That's very well said. That's not like not ignoring reality.
Yeah, and
And
things like I wasn't always at the time. I thought I was really mistreated and I was tricked. I was manipulated. Blah blah. Sure, at the time, but looking back, I'm like, what I wanted it so bad that I didn't want to be I didn't want to think of the reality. I was hoping, and the reason I wouldn't ask somebody, how do you really feel? Or do you want to be boyfriends? I didn't want to ask because I was afraid of the answer. If I'm afraid of the answer, that tells me already that maybe things.
It already does, yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, we all have to take responsibility for our part in.
Yes. Taking responsibility for your part, absolutely. And if you take that logic to the extreme, I'm going to say this: even though reality tells you that the relationship will not occur, you can give yourself whatever you want. You can give yourself the gift of loving the other, even if they don't love you. And it doesn't mean that you don't accept reality. You can completely accept reality, that you are completely okay with not having a relationship with someone, but you can. So there is this ambiguity that can exist, and it's very extreme on the being seduced side, let's say. And on the seducer side, as well. I'm it's about accepting and taking responsibility, but you can give yourself what you want. You can give that to yourself. You can give the love to of someone who is no longer in your life, even, and who's dead. Someone who's dead. You can love them.
Well, and let me tell you something. Those people that are the seducers, and I know plenty of them, plenty. The ones who are the seducers, if all you want is to get laid, to me, then you are setting up your life in a way that you aren't going to get love because you don't even have that door open. Now, that might not be important to some people, or maybe it would be. It just depends.
That's a self-destructive vicious circle.
It,
It is, you're trying to give yourself something, but the way you're doing it is not giving yourself anything. It's a fast pleasure that is never fulfilling. But sorry, I cut you off.
Sometimes they say, well, I'm not interested in love. There's like I always remember this one guy who I dated for a couple weeks, and then it didn't work out. Like he was just too like emotionally, he was not really present. He just was like, all he really wanted was like, he just liked getting laid and just having fun, blah, blah. He didn't want to get like have any meaningful discussions. He didn't want a real relationship. He wanted something very, very casual, and I didn't. So, but we stayed friendly. It was no big deal. So then I found out that he had been in an accident, and then he was in the hospital. So I was like, oh my God, whatever. What hospital he's at? Oh, I think he's in so-and-so. So I go to the hospital and I go see him. So I go to this hospital. I hadn't seen him in a couple months. And he was so shocked that I was there. And guess what? I was so shocked that no one had gone to see him. His family wasn't living in Manhattan. And all of those people that he was hanging out with and hooking up with, no one cared that he was in the hospital. Even who told me nobody went to go see him. He said, you're the first person to see me. And I was like, but you've been here for 4 days. And he'd been there by himself. And I think for him, it was such a crazy situation for him to realize the quality of life that he was having, which he didn't realize because he was having fun, getting laid, drinking, partying, clubs and whatever. But it's like, but when the pandemic happened and everybody all of a sudden there's no bars and clubs, you just need an apartment. Who are your friends? Who do you want to connect with? Who can you reach out to? I think for some people that's a bit of a wake-up call. Sure. So there's a lot of times that I got burned very badly from relationships and dating and stuff like that. Sometimes I was blind because I didn't want to see the truth, and sometimes I think they did a really good job tricking me. But right. But looking back, I think that at least I was always open to finding love and being in love. I was always open to that. There was never a time that I chose, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to get hurt. I'm not going to open up anymore. I never wanted to be that person. I always felt like, to me, that's an emotional death, I guess.
Right. Allow yourself to be defined by the future rather than by the past.
But but people get burned, and I understand why
people get burned. Yeah.
Talk to anybody who's been divorced. It's the worst.
People get burned, but I'm going to tell you this: you might have been tricked. As you said, you have to take responsibility for for your part, even though you've got all the evidence. At some point, you're still choosing to get burned. I know it's very radical, it's very extreme as an idea, but at least you choose to let that define your future. Whereas you can do the work of not letting that define your future and change the patterns, and because there's probably something you did, just like you're saying, you ignored that sign and you allowed somehow to get tricked. That if you change that, then probably the result.
Let's say, for example, I was tricked, right? That there was no way I could have seen it, and I was tricked. The guy was very clever. I got tricked, and
they are very clever. I know that.
They're very clever, sure. But guess what? So I got tricked, I got burned, and so forth. But I will not let one event, I will not let one experience define who I am. So if I was going to take a French class and I get a teacher who's absolutely awful and embarrasses me in front of the group and whatever, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't be, is that going to stop me from learning French? No, I will not let one experience with one person define what my mission is, who it is that I'm trying to be. It's very easy to get locked like that because you don't want to get hurt again, blah, blah, whatever.
stop dwelling on this on the problem and start dwelling on the solution. You get an accident, it's not your fault. You're all of a sudden in chair. Are you going to feel like you're a victim, or are you going to do something about it? Maybe it's a beautiful constraint. Just like I don't know who said this. If was it Brooke Castillo or uh, Gretchen? But anyways, yeah, that they were going to go to have an eye operation, and there was a chance for them to become blind, and they were saying, "What's such?" Before the operation, they was saying, "That's a great. That might be a great thing for me to become blind. I'm going to experience all of these other experiences." So the way you think about the circumstances will influence your emotions, will in turn influence your decisions, and will in turn influence your life. You are your life. You have to take responsibility for your life. And yeah, there
Well,
was something else you
you
said.
know,
I forgot.
in therapy that they psychiatrists and psychologists here in the United States, they used to be called shrinks. Like, oh, I'm going to go see my shrink, was a term that they used for therapists, and it was because the idea was that if you go to therapy, a psychologist is going to show you how to shrink your problems so that they don't seem that bad, right? And I remember reading something where someone was explaining, like, instead of trying to shrink the problem, because sometimes the problems are, you know, significant. You might have lost somebody who was close to you. You might have lost
Exactly.
whatever. Instead of trying to shrink the problem, why not start to think of yourself as being bigger than the problem? Like, that's the thing. It's like, okay, so I had this relationship, it ended very badly and so forth, but I'm bigger than that. My life is bigger than just the ending of one relationship, no matter
Right.
how significant that person
Exactly. And
is.
it all starts with awareness. And if you want to develop that, there's something called meditation, where you just observe your thoughts so that you can distantiate yourself from the thought, and then you can start that journey of modifying that thoughts. But and the second point is, so the shrinking is completely wrong. The shrinking is completely wrong, because meditating is about, first of all, you have to be aware of that thought. So you have to allow them, not frustrate them. The opposite is what happens to the seducer, who's only interested in hooking up, just like an alcoholic person is just interested in numbing their feeling,
Yeah.
never resolving them. There is something like that in porn addiction, that you just want to, and hooking up, you just want to numb your frustration that is deeply rooted in you, and you end up in this vicious circle. And I'm not saying it's easy to break
You
that
use
circle.
your whole life into this one 10, 15-minute or like a couple hours of being drunk. You reduce your whole life down to just this one moment of me feeling good, only because I'm not thinking about all the rest of the issues and stuff that's in my life. I just in this time period, only in this one particular thing. And but what happens? So at some point you sober up. At some point you wake up and realize, okay, I have to pay the bills. I'm in this relationship, or I live in this house or this town or whatever, or have this job. You have reality is always going to be there, and that's where the addiction like starts to feel like, well, let me just drink some more, do more drugs.
It's destructive. It's destructive. In your case, in your example, your friend, wake up call. He's got this accident, and nobody comes except you, the only person who has values, and he doesn't know you that much. That tells a lot about him having been in that destructive, vicious circle, that he never built long-lasting relationship. He never built value for himself. He never processed his frustration. He was numbing it with that pattern, and allowing the past to define himself. He didn't take responsibility. And I'm not saying it's easy. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of motivation, a lot of introspection, a lot of meditation, a lot of it's but life is like this, guys. It's infinite. It's an infinite game. If you want to be on a direction, you have to put in the energy to keep on being on that direction. And the minute you don't, my wife is, I don't know what she's doing. But anyways, I have to go to the bathroom. I've been meditating on my lower parts for, I think, half an hour now. I
Okay.
don't know. It's
All
such
right.
a great conversation that I enjoyed it.
Yes, I think maybe next Friday I'll probably have like a glass of wine with it because I feel like this
Yeah.
relaxing.
And I have to say, go and read Achilles' book. It's not only for a special niche of person. I enjoy the book. I haven't finished it, and I intend to finish it. And I laugh. I laugh so much all the time. Man, you make us laugh. You have that gift. And here, my cat Bushman on this chair wants to say hello. Hi, guys.
Oh my God, that cat.
He is something. Yeah.
All right, well then, so I have my homework, and your homework, of course, is you'll send me
Yeah.
the prices, and you'll send me a photo of you and Isa,
Yeah.
and then we'll reconvene on Friday.
Yeah. That's great. Merci beaucoup, beaucoup, Achilles.
And
Surtout,
tell me,
garde ta flamme intacte. No matter what, keep it burning. Keep the flame burning.
yes, 100%, 100%. All right, so I'll let you go to the bathroom. I'll talk to you later.
Merci beaucoup, Achilles.
All right, bye.
Namaste.